Welcome to Senior Speak New Hampshire on your Concord TV, sponsored by AARP New Hampshire. I am Karen Ulmer-Dorsch, the producer and host of this program. And today we have a really wonderful program for you. Again, my dear friend, Todd Fahey, who is the state director of AARP New Hampshire, is here to talk with us about absentee voting. It is so important that you all are in tune with just exactly what you need to do, what you need to know to vote by mail if you want to. I have already submitted my primary, and Todd is going to walk us through all of these things. I encourage you to do this. If you have young people who are not familiar with post offices, etc., please share this with them also, because I think that they are going to find this is a new experience for them. So without further ado, let me say hello, Todd. It's wonderful to see you, and let's hear what you have to tell us.
Well, hello, Karen. It's nice to see you, albeit virtually. It's good to be back on Senior Speak. So for sure. So I think it's a nice introduction, and we can talk through what this looks like for the listeners. Absentee voting will be critical this year for many people who are concerned about COVID-19. So I want people to know at the outset, and it's important that your listeners hear this, we are a nonpartisan organization. We support no political party. We don't have a political action committee. We support no candidate. We are an advocacy organization concerned about the welfare and the best, helping 50+ live their best lives in New Hampshire. A big piece of that is making sure that people can exercise their constitutional right to vote in the midst of this obviously unprecedented pandemic, right, in our time. So I'm thankful to be on your show today, Karen, to talk about, we have a short PowerPoint, and I guess my other suggestion to your listeners and your viewers would be, there'll be a lot of text on this, and it's there'll be an opportunity for you to maybe pause your video and write it down, and you're going to need to maybe look at your computers and write down some numbers. And we tried to make it as simple as possible, but it's not particularly simple. But this is an effort, thank you, Karen, to help people understand the process.
And let me say this too. This is going to be showing on the Concord TV all of August and into September, right up through to the primary. So you can watch it as many times as you need to and take notes, or, you know, just refresh your memory. That's what I do, because I always need refreshed.
Great. So let me tell you where this comes from. So this information that I'm about to share with you comes from very close consultation with the New Hampshire Secretary of State's office. So AARP prepared it in consultation and I guess loose collaboration with the Secretary of State's office. So that's where this information comes from, and you will see continual references in my PowerPoint presentations to the Secretary of State's office. And so it's important in this time of some disinformation that's out there to know that the information is good information, and the Secretary of State's office is in charge of elections in New Hampshire. So with no further ado, if it's okay with you, we'll get to the PowerPoint.
Sounds great.
Great.
Let's move into it. And people, there might be some hesitancies and whatnot through this presentation, but we're all learning how to operate Zoom, and so just bear with us, because we've got a good program for you.
So thanks, Karen. So the title of this is just Safely Voting in New Hampshire During a Pandemic. And obviously, we're very interested in voting in New Hampshire. We have a very engaged electorate. Many of you will remember just a few months back when before we were beset by this pandemic, we were voting in something called the New Hampshire primary. So big numbers turn out for those events. I don't have the numbers for 2020, but in 2016, 382,606 people over 50 turned out to vote in the, actually, no, that was in the general election, frankly, in 2016, 382,606. that is a big number. And for those of you who don't know, New Hampshire is one of the older states in the nation. By many accounts, it's the second oldest, which is a great thing for sure if you're with AARP. And even if you're not, it's still a good thing that we're an aging, robust, healthy state, all of which we are. But we're engaged, we want to vote, and we need to be able to vote safely in this election because that's what Granite Staters do. So this presentation is to help people do just that. So the key for us is to help our people vote during a pandemic. You heard me talk about the numbers, hugely engaged electorate, partially because we care in New Hampshire, partially because we vote. 2016 presidential election, 382,606 people, plus or minus, turned out to vote. Those are people who are over 50. The 50 plus vote in massive numbers all the time in New Hampshire and elsewhere, but particularly in the Granite State, one of the oldest states in the nation. Consequently, voting safely from home is important for everybody, but you could make the case it's particularly important in a state like ours where we tend to vote a lot and where the population is older. As far as the older piece goes, the reason I'm talking about the older piece as far as age is that the CDC is making recommendations that people who are over certain ages or with underlying health conditions make sure they manage social distancing and keep themselves safe, right? So our advice is for people to follow all of that. You still with me, Karen? Looking okay?
I'm with you, and I still see the mailbox.
Super, super. That's where I want to be.
Yeah, great.
So, so I think it's important that we educate people to what their opportunities are and what their options are so they can exercise their constitutional rights to vote. So let's get to that. These are the key issues for us is we're fighting to protect issues that matter to 50 plus voters and to ensure that their concerns are heard most on this issue. For candidates to win in New Hampshire, they must address issues that really matter to the 50 plus voters. And those issues are Social Security, Medicare, health and financial security, prescription drug prices, long-term care, and frankly, voting safely from home or in person, if they choose, safely during this pandemic. So the purpose of this is to make sure people know all their voting options. I'll say this again, Karen, it's pretty self-evident, but it may be not. We're not telling people how to vote. No. We're simply telling people mechanically how they might cast their vote.
Absolutely. And what we want to say is that is one freedom that we frequently take for granted, and we should never do it. There are people dying constantly all over the world for this privilege. So please, people, vote.
Right, right. And so we want to make sure that people know what their voting options are, whether they vote, whether they do absentee ballots or whether they go to the polls on election day. Exactly. And we're demanding action from politicians to ensure that 50 plus Americans, from working parents to family caregivers to seniors in nursing homes, all of them, if they so choose, can, as you say, Karen, exercise their right to vote and actually to vote safely. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. So again, two options for voting. You can vote in person, and what we understand from the Secretary of State's office, there's going to be safeguards at the polling places, and there's been a lot of work done on this by the Secretary of State's office. There was a special commission that was appointed to advise the Secretary of State's office. We testified in that, as did many, many others. And the results of that were ways to vote absentee or to make polling places safer. So again, we're going to focus today on absentee voting in New Hampshire. Right. If you're concerned about COVID-19, you can still vote, and you can vote by absentee ballot. So it is important that New Hampshire has approved the use of absentee ballots for the state primary on September 8th and for the general election on November 3rd. Right. For Granite Staters who have concerns about COVID-19. One must request an absentee ballot. There's a form for doing that. We'll get into that, what that form looks like. But one form covers the primary and the general election. So you put in one form and you should be getting back ballots to vote from your home in the primary election and in the general election. So we tried to break it down to 8 steps. They're not they're not all that simple. I mean, there's some importance, but let's just take some time. We can walk through it, and people, with the wonders of technology, you can press pause and say, what did he just say? What did Karen
Right.
Ulmer-Dorsch just say?
Right.
That makes sense to you, Karen?
Does absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
So the first piece is you got to make sure you're registered to vote. Okay. And in here, you have to register with your city clerk, town clerk before you request an absentee ballot. If you're not registered to vote, you obviously can't get an absentee ballot. What is important here is that you get on this issue immediately for a couple of reasons. One, there may be a lot of our fellow Granite Staters opting to vote absentee. So you don't want to wait till the last minute to do this because things go wrong, you blow deadlines, you know, people aren't available, maybe the office hours have changed as a result of the pandemic. And as most of us know, the pandemic serves no man or woman, really. You know, it's just it does what it wants. I mean, it decides what's going to happen, and we seem to always be reacting to the fluidity of the pandemic. And by that I mean, you know, we don't know right now, as of the taping of this, early August, things are okay in New Hampshire, but they may not be if we have a flare-up or something, or who knows what could happen. We don't know. I mean, the students are going back to school, the college kids are coming back. You know, there's people going back to work. It's not exactly clear. Time is not your friend on this issue. If you're interested in doing this, it's better to act swiftly. So you can check your registration status. Let me just give my little pointer here. I have a little laser pointer I'm very excited about using. So this is my laser. This is my laser pointer. So you can check your registration status here. I know there's a lot of words there and a lot of things to see, but if you go to this website, you can see it's from the Secretary of State, sos.nh.gov. It's not a bogus website. It's not an AARP website. It is the Secretary of State website. As I understand it, everything feeds in through a special system into these websites, from the towns up to the Secretary of State, so that people can go kind of one-stop shopping. All right, so step one, make sure you're registered to vote. Sound good?
Right. Sounds good.
Okay. I'll keep my little PowerPoint on next. I like my little laser pointer.
I like that too.
Thank you, Karen. You're so agreeable. So the second, call, email, or visit your city or town clerk's office to receive one if you have to register to vote. So you look up your clerk here. This is where you find it. Again, go to SOS, which stands for Secretary of State, New Hampshire.gov, which means government. And you can figure out who your clerk is if you don't already know. Most of you probably know because, again, you're good Granite Staters and you've been voters for years. And if you're not, you might want to vote. It might be a little easier for you this year if you've had some, maybe you've had some mobility challenges in the past, or who knows, there could be different reasons why it was harder for you to vote, but this was an easier way. Or you can download an absentee ballot again here. Again, this is the website. So what you want to do is this whole line, you need to just go into, like, say, a Google or a Yahoo, and you just type this in. Exactly. You maybe cut and paste it, just type it in. Type this one in. That's how it would come to work. I don't think you're not going to be able, because this isn't something that you can just click on this. We just can't click on this because of how I'm presenting, but you'd need to make sure you can have a look at it.
Right.
So once you've gotten that document, somebody's going to give you that document. It'll be sent to you by your town clerk. Has that happened to you, Karen, or did you download it? How did you do it?
No, I actually went to my town clerk, and what happened was I had downloaded a ballot that was on my screen, but it turned out that wasn't the right ballot, because I was doing this in, I think, July. Okay. And it wasn't the correct ballot, but she handed me the correct ballot, and she told my husband and I how to fill it, helped us fill it out, and said, okay, we have done it once now, we should be receiving the primary ballot, and we would receive the general election. And I've already received my primary ballot and sent it back in.
Great. Good. That's exactly that's one way to make it happen.
Right.
So when you fill out the absentee ballot application, and again, so with this is your application. It's your request to receive an absentee ballot. This is not the absentee ballot, but you're just saying, I need to get a ballot, an absentee ballot. Now, in the past, and we'll get to this in the next screen, there was only certain reasons for one to obtain an absentee ballot. And you might have had a disability. That was one reason. Or you may have been absent for some reason from the state. And, maybe you were in the military. We've heard lots of discussions about people who have voted absentee because they were serving abroad and they still wanted to vote. This year, because of legislation, bipartisan legislation, important, Democrats, Republicans talked about this, debated it, agreed to it. Little aside on that, I was very proud of that. If anybody ever wants to hear a hearing, it was a wonderful hearing about how important and how committed people are to our democracy. Democracy in general is not partisan. Democracy is about civic participation and about how we govern ourselves as a democratic free people. And it was interesting to see it. So the Democrats, Republicans came together and we agreed, they agreed, and we supported it as an organization that we were going to change the format so that people could check a box off and say, I am not able to vote in person due to concern for the novel coronavirus COVID-19. If that is your concern, I am not able to vote in person due to concern for the novel coronavirus COVID-19. You check that box. See the red arrow? We'll get to that box in just a minute in the next slide. But again, we'll see some of the other reasons for not being able to vote in person, but this is now a legitimate reason. If you have any concern for the novel coronavirus, check the box, and that should entitle you to get an absentee ballot. Make sense?
Makes great sense.
Now, again, this is early August, so again, submit your absentee ballot application. So we recommend, maybe August 24th, because a lot of things are happening, and there could be dozens of people requesting this, and there's a lot of fluidity, right? I mean, you could have a letter carrier who's got COVID-19. Who knows? There's a lot of things that could go on. Time is not your friend. So our humble suggestion as an organization is for people who wish to do this. We're not saying they should, but if they wish to, make sure you get the application submitted and in. Now remember, there's a primary election first, then there's a general election second. And the dates are slightly different for getting the ballots in for either one. But again, we cover that in the slide. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect sense.
And then, so then once you've done all that, you're going to get your ballot and you fill your ballot out as you decide. You vote for who you want. So it's not for us to tell you how to vote. We never do that. Karen, you well know that. We're not an organization about that. We will have information later on in the slides. If you're concerned about Social Security, Medicare, your loved ones in nursing homes, your finances, it's important for you to get good information to figure out where the candidates stand on issues that matter to you. And so that you can request your absentee ballot, you can get it, and then you can mail your ballot back in to vote for people who represent what it is that you want to have happen in our state. Make sense?
Yep.
One of the neat things that I really like is you can see here, it's track the status of your absentee ballot request. So once you've sent it back in the mail, you can track it. And you can see where it is, and this is an important piece of this here to see where you are in the process. It's important to know whether your ballot's been received or whether it hasn't been received. Oh, actually, I misspoke on that. So this is to check out where you are with your ballot request. So it's not the absentee ballot, but it's the ballot request. So you'll see. Did they ask? Did they receive your request? Did they not? Is it in process? If it isn't, it's sort of like tracking things in the mail. It's just like that, really, right? So good way to do it. I'll pause there for a minute, Karen. Any comments?
No, just let's keep to the 30 minutes that we have, and so let's move right along.
Okay, we'll keep moving. So then you vote, fill out your ballot completely at home, read the instructions carefully, and make sure you sign the envelope. There's another envelope that'll come that has to be signed. Fill out that envelope completely, sign it, mail it back in. You return your ballot. You got to make sure that ballot's received before Election Day. So you mail it, 155 stamp should be required, or drop it off in person. And then again, like you can track the request, you can track the ballot here, Karen,
Right.
this website to see where your ballot is to make sure it was received. If it wasn't, you need to follow up on that.
Right.
Anyways, couple other things, and I'll keep moving along. New Hampshire will still have election day polling sites operate under health officials' guidelines. But again, given the uncertainty of COVID-19, like we talked about at the beginning, strongly encourage voters to request a ballot to be mailed to them and return the ballot by mail. That was something actually even Deputy Secretary of State David Scanlon said, if you're interested in doing this, act quickly. So if you have any questions, contact the City Town Clerk's office or the New Hampshire Secretary of State's office. Here's their number, and you can see more contact information below.
That's great.
And finally, here's just a little form I'll show you. So it's always good to use the pointer. So again, in the past, this is what the form's going to look like. So
Right.
you have different, I cannot vote in public because of it was a religious holiday, or you were going to be absent, or you had a disability. But now you can say this is a reason to vote absentee ballot. Okay, and again, it's legitimate. This is what the state has decided we're going to do in this election. Okay, this is for 2020 because of the pandemic. So voting is everybody's right and constitutional privilege and their civic duty. We have more information for you here. Have a look at it. AARP.org election 2020 is going to give you more information about key issues like Social Security, Medicare, and things that matter to the 50 plus. And then there's some New Hampshire specific information. You can have a look at, our website, AARP.org, NH votes, and AARP.org/NH. You'll also see us on Twitter and Facebook, and make sure you make your voice be heard, whether you're doing it in person or you're voting by absentee ballot. And that's it. This is the name of our campaign to encourage and to help people cast their votes safely in 2020. But that's all I have for you, Karen.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. And we still have time, Todd, if you want to say anything else. But I think we really have covered this fairly well for people. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have much else. I mean, I think people could certainly have a look at the website, go to the Secretary of State's office, but educate yourself. So I think this is a really critical election, as all elections are. It's a presidential election. The nation's very divided. There's a lot going on account of the pandemic and otherwise. So it is my hope and plea for people to just take some time, and we all have a little more time because we're not really able to do what we used to do. So maybe spend just a sliver of that time educating yourself on the issues, and cast your vote for who you think best represents what your interests are.
Right, and I think it's important to say that as AARP people, volunteers and all, we are following all of our candidates very carefully, and we are trying to find out where their stances are so that we can inform people as to how our candidates are what they stand for, and we encourage everybody to do that and to vote just vote.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I would say on that subject that your vote is critically important, and your right to your vote matters, and your right to be the master of your own intellect and your decision is really, really important. So my request is please rely upon good information. If you want to figure out what a candidate says, and feel free to look at our website about what the proposals really mean for you. If there's going to be an update to Social Security and candidate X has this proposal and candidate Y has this proposal, maybe you should listen to what candidate X and candidate Y proposals say, but then take the next step and ask yourself, upon good information, and we have some, but we're not the only source, but we're a very good source, and we're very trustworthy. Decide which one best represents what you want to have happen.
Exactly.
And then cast your vote accordingly. But I guess I would just, Granite Staters are smart, savvy people. I think we've said this before. I grew up here. I love the Granite State. I was born in New Hampshire. I know a lot of people in the Granite State, and I know they care deeply, a lot of great common sense. I don't care whether they were born here or whether they weren't. I just simply say that because I've been here a long time.
Right.
And I'm proud of the fact that I was born here, and I know a lot of Granite Staters. So
Right.
whether they came here later like you, or whether they were born here earlier like me, we're all in it together.
We
That's,
are. And Todd, I can't thank you enough for offering this to our viewers. And it's always so wonderful to see you. So everyone, please exercise your freedom and go and vote. And until the next time, be good, do good, be one.
Thanks, Karen. Always a pleasure.
Okay.